You're between two dumbbells. I'm your host, Skip Hill, and I'm bringing over 40 years of bodybuilding experience to the table, including 24 years of online coaching. I'm joined today by my co-host, as usual. That's not his name. His name's Dr. Marv. He's also known as the Educated Meathead. For each show, we posit thought about a training exercise or training methodology, and then we deep dive into the minutia. Typically, we're on the same page, but there are those times when we call each other names. Vicious. Dr. Marv can be vicious and tell each other how stupid the other one is. I don't know if we've ever done that, but nonetheless. Remember also, this is important, we just started the critical physique assessment segment last week. So if you're interested in being assessed on a future show, be sure to reach out to me via email at teamskip1@gmail.com, and I'll send you a list of information that you'll need to submit, including, of course, pictures for assessment. Use the TrueNutrition.com link in the closing credits to save 10% on not just Team Skip protein, but every supplement they sell. Not only do I use my Team Skip protein with my clients, but other top prep guys have their clients use my protein because it's that good. This is how good it is. Even though you probably don't get your protein drink on your fingers, it's that good. I'm trying to do it as close as I can to the microphone too. Today, just a little bit different. Deposit. I'm going to take the deposit. Is that okay?
Yeah.
I want to run down the list of what we think the most dangerous or risky movements are for each muscle group. And because so many muscle groups, we're going to have to try to, well, I'm going to have to, it's going to be an exercise in brevity for me, which is very difficult to do. But we're going to run through all the muscle groups. Let's do it this way. For each muscle group, you take the lead, because I got a couple for each muscle group, and I don't want to bore everybody by going, yeah, that's what I was thinking too. And there are, obviously there's more than one muscle group that arguably is risky or is kind of can put you in a vulnerable position. And we'll discuss ways to make it less risky, less vulnerable. It's not that these exercises suck and you need to throw them in the trash. So maybe based on when they are in the workout or tweaks to the mechanics, we'll talk about all that. So where do we start? We start with the big ones, go to the little ones. Do we start at the top and go down? We could start on the left side and go to, we can't do that. We can't do that. But we can go top, bottom, large to small.
Let's
what do you
go
think?
top, bottom with the most climactic edge of your seat. I wonder what it's going to be. Pecs. Because nobody knows what the riskiest. Yeah.
Because when I'm lean, I get a lot of compliments on my jaw. Oh, why are you pointing to your temple, Skip? Because your jaw muscles are. Oh, forget it. That's See, well, that's where I go.
I actually needle that muscle when I needle jaws.
Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Works really well.
When I'm lean and I'm chewing, I will get a lot of, and I don't have a hat on. I get a lot of attention about how do you grow? People think they're so fun. How do you grow those muscles inside your head? They're moving every time you chew.
Yeah.
Show me your most muscular.
When you see somebody so lean, you can almost see their teeth through their cheeks. It's like, damn.
I know a thing or two about training, but I built a reputation in the bodybuilding industry for removing skin. If you have too much skin, call me. Remember, skin is overrated.
Like, I can't look away. I'm just mesmerized. It's like you're at a body exhibit.
Yeah.
It's impressive when you see somebody that lean.
Yeah, I'm not going to have anybody ask me right now.
So let's start with pecs. Nobody knows what we're going to say. God, just the climax is going to be huge. So we have lots of studies showing that up to 80% of pec major ruptures involved a barbell.
Now, no one knew that. No one knew that.
No. Shocker.
Yeah. I tell you what, the 80% though, that's a little,
Yes. Now,
that's
some studies didn't denote incline versus flat. I would expect flat to be more than incline, but some of them lumped them together. But that's a huge freaking number. How wide your grip is. your elbow creeping up. So this is called shoulder abduction, right? So, hopefully people know, if you watch every pec tear video on the history of the internet, either the rep it tears or the reps right before, their elbows start creeping up. And then also, according to the data, not having your shoulder blades retracted will increase not just your risk of your pec major, but also rotator cuff and this joint right here, your AC joint. So obviously benching is number one. And then dips would probably be the second highest, especially with ring dips. We had the fiasco in 2017 with CrossFit where they had 36 of their competitors tear their pecs in a 3-week season.
Not funny, but
yeah, it's kinda. Like, so once again, here's my job security counter. There's number one, since a couple listeners have said, let's start that.
I did laugh at that.
Yep.
I did laugh at that. Tanya was one of them.
Yeah. But it's true. Like, come on, folks, you are ruining your top athlete. So, and then I have a third, but let me hear your thoughts, because there's not really research on it, but I have a third that I think could be pec or bicep.
Well, I definitely had bench, and that's a no-brainer. I think anybody listening is going,
everybody.
I hope it gets deeper than this, because this is way predictable. Here's my only argument about the bench press, and this is the part that I don't like about studies. Is it and we both know the answer to this, but so it's a bit rhetorical, but nonetheless, is it really the bench press, or is it the bench press because that's the most popular movement, compound movement that's done? So if it's done more often by more people, then you can argue that can, that increases the risk. So it's one of those things where in a study, I'd like to see, like, it can't happen, but if dumbbell presses were more popular than bench, and everybody tomorrow quit doing bench presses, and for the next 5 years all we did was dumbbell presses, what would happen specifically to those numbers? Now, I do think they would decrease substantially. I think that's a no-brainer. But how much? Because it could be argued that it's just the most used. I mean, no one asks you what you shrug. No one asks you, I'm trying to think of something obscure, but calf raise, or what do you use on seated calves?
What's your tricep kickback?
Exactly. Exactly. Good point. I was trying to think of something obscure. Leave it to you. Nice. But so what I did is I put that to the side, the bench, because it just seems so obvious. And I'm going to go with dumbbell flies.
Yes, me too.
And here's the thing. It's a great movement. In fact, I think it's a very underutilized and very effective movement, even for size in the off season. The thing is because of that stretched position, if you're going to have this exercise at the beginning, or God forbid you're going to open with it, because I think that is your biggest risk, unless your opener is high reps and the mechanics are great and you're warmed up and your shoulder mobility is good, things of that nature, then that's cool. You got to be real careful with this movement. And as much as I love it, it's never going to come in the first couple movements of my chest workout. If I do 4 exercises, the earliest it's going to come in is the third.
Okay. And
it's probably going to be more of and I don't like to use this word. I almost said hate. Try not to use that word. But I strongly dislike using flies unless they're at the end, when everything is one. And I don't have any problem dropping down to even 10 reps if it's based more on fatigue than it is actual, just like the contractile force is just gone. That's different to me. Okay, I'm warm at that point, but the mechanics are huge. Now, I will not force, which is another issue. If you're going to force the stretch, you're asking for more trouble. If you're going to go really straight with the arms, we've all seen this that makes me cringe. You need to have that bend, which arguably creates more of a stretch. So just outside of that 90 degrees, I think is great. And don't force the stretch in the bottom to get the stretch, but don't force that stretch out of your natural range of motion. If you need more or want more range of motion, then be able to loosen up the muscles around in the shoulder, the front delt, and the chest. And the retraction is huge. The retraction, I'm so glad that you said that. And there's going to be a lot of people, I think, who heard it or listened, but didn't really hear it. They didn't go, oh, yeah, that is. It's so, I think to a lot of people, it's very, very obvious. And yet sometimes we forget that, especially when those numbers get up and we're trying and we get fixated on those numbers. Big, huge point.
Like, people don't realize, like, your back is the solid ground from which you're firing your cannon, i.e. your pecs, and you have no back tension. I mean, I was working with somebody in office last week of this person, I had her pull her hands apart while on the negative to fire her back. And she's like, oh my God, I have no shoulder pain. I'm like, there you go. Right. So people don't discredit that. So yeah, super important. Yeah. I think of the Ahhnold flies where his knuckles are scraping the ground. Like, damn impressive. If I do that, this arm's popping out, this one's shooting blood. Like, so yeah, we're pretty much on the same page. So, if we're going to do a bench, I prefer dumbbells or an incline or a Smith. It would be at the very end. We've talked about, I love guillotine, which again is a finisher, not a major one. That has its own risk. I love the football or the Swiss bar. I started playing around with that when I was training, and that's nice because that automatically tucks your elbows. It prevents that creeping up. So you don't have to throw it away altogether, but I will never program a flat barbell bench as exercise one. Very rarely do I program that at all. That's just, what I do for a living. I just see it too often. But if you're a garage gym goer, make it towards the final 20% of your exercises. You're nice and warm. You're going for contraction. You're not doing 1 rep maxes. And I think there's some benefit. I never got it just because my shoulders take over. So again, if it's not working for your structure, it's not working for your structure.
And before we move on to the next muscle group, real quick, I do want to say, I don't want to forget this. Dips, as far as I'm concerned, I just think they are incredibly inefficient. That to me is one of those exercises for chest that is, I'm okay with leaving in the antiquated or archaic bin over here.
Okay.
For triceps, I don't have as much of an issue because there's not as much focus on that range of motion and that anterior, delt chest, it's just, it's kind of like, okay, that's one of those old school things that I'm not going to, be the old head and go, I don't know what happened to the, to the dips because they're a mainstay. I understand they've created some great chests. That's great. But arguably those chests were probably going to be great anyway. And I'm not going to give the dips too much credit on that. If you want decline, go ahead and decline wide hammer. Take the bit. Look, I won't take a bench at a flat anymore. I'm going to put it up at least.
Yes.
I'm going to put it up at least 3 or 4 inches.
I should have said that. I agree with that. That automatically opens up space. Vince Garanda style dips were the only way I got my chest to grow in the beginning. I can't do them now with elbow and shoulder issues, but for a while I was big on the Vince dips, which we've talked about, and we'll do a future episode about him because I think he does get some credit because he gets hated on a lot. I'm like, dude, the dude was so far ahead of his time. Like, come on. Of course he's not going to be 100%.
Yeah, that might even actually have to be like a 2-part segment because there's so much about him that is great that I don't know if we can condense it into, one show. Where do we go from here? We're going to back? We're going to where you want to go?
Yeah, so let's go back. I lumped lats and teres major together. I didn't do like rhomboids. I did some notes on like trap and levator. If we have time, we'll get to it.
Okay.
So just know that according to the study, it's on the screen. Spontaneous rupture of the latissimus dorsi muscle is a rare injury in few reported cases where evulsion injuries at the humeral insertion, meaning where the lat attaches to the upper arm bone, it actually rips a piece of the bone off. So if you're going to have a lat injury, it's due to forceful resisted adduction and extension when you're already in an abducted and externally rotated position. Think of sports, though, very rarely bodybuilding. So think of pitching, cricket, tennis, rock climbing, where you have these high eccentric loads in this weird position, and the muscles are already trying to decelerate the arm. Another study specifically mentioned, pulling the rope with water skiing. So those type of mechanisms. So for lifting, think pull-ups and chins, especially if explosive, especially if kipping. So remember, we've got to work the word kipping into our vocabulary. CrossFit, muscle ups. There's a couple case studies online. And then rowing.
But it happens with T-bars sometimes.
Yeah, it can't. Yeah, I was like, it can happen with a bent over row. One study mentioned inverted row, and I'm like, I have a hard time believing that. But they all said much less common than overhead sports. And I couldn't find any studies on lat teres major tears from deadlifts, probably just because your activation is so low compared to your glutes, hamstrings, and erectors. Performance chiropractic and sports medicine in the Houston Bay area, telemedicine and nutrition coaching all over Texas. And if you're not in Texas, don't worry. You still do consults through the educatedmeathead.com, where you also find workout programs, seminar recordings, and online courses. I have talked to somebody when I was a vendor or a sponsor, whatever word you want to use. It depends which side of the spectrum you're at, a bodybuilding show, where he said, yeah, I tore my lat deadlifting. And I was like, huh, interesting. Was it really the deadlift? Was it hanging on by a thread? Like, it's kind of odd because I've personally never seen that. But yeah, that's pretty much what I have. Can you think of anything else off the top of your head?
Yeah, the one thing that stands out for me is the and obviously, look, to the viewers, understand that we're not saying not to do any of these movements based on the risk or the vulnerability. There's a risk, an inherent risk in every single exercise that we do in the gym. There's always going to be that risk. We're talking about minimizing it with exercise selection and or changing the mechanics or just things to minimize it and optimize gains, minimize the time that you're going to have to spend outside of the gym or training around an injury. I'm going to go with the kind of the old school Ahhnold stretched long pulley row. Where it's almost kind of a rounded back and the lean forward. Here's the nice thing. These days it's harder to do because the vast majority of long pulley rows aren't the 1960s or 1970s version where the pulley is literally a mile down the train track.
You got to get your glasses out to see it.
And even while you're doing the exercise, you might be able to keep the mechanics right. But when you go to put the bar back, a lot of people will just get lazy and they'll lean into it versus, you know, my method is I pop up out of the seated position into what is arguably a standing position, even though it's not standing on the floor, because you never want to put your feet on the floor, take them off of the platform, put them on the floor to go to put that weight back, because if that weight is heavy enough, which it should be, you're going to, if you slip, one of your feet slips on the floor, what's going to happen? It's going straight into that shin on the edge of that metal platform, and you're going to cry like a baby. At least I do. That stretch position is such a vulnerable position on the lower back. Not a lat, not a rhomboid, you know, middle. No, but the lower back for the vast majority of people. And it's not just the older demographic. Even if you're not going to injure yourself, you can beat down that area over time, and you're creating down the line a vulnerability. I think it's a bad idea. I think that in that position, just like with any other row, long pulley row, at least how you approach it should be no different than a bent over barbell or anything else. The back and the erectors, the lower back, they're just basically stabilizers. They're holding you in that position while you're doing this rowing movement. So everything that's moving should be up around the shoulder blades, not the lower back. I think it's a very dangerous. And I do understand that there is like a Dante row or something. I know.
So
Justin,
I was just say, I love the high pulls, but you're staying in that position. You're not doing this explosive. Right. So the high pulls on screen right now, that's one of my favorite movements ever. I actually programmed it for our physique critique last week. That comes out tomorrow, right? So watch that. But it's not the Ahhnold rocking back and forth, jerking weight, having the weight just catch. You're keeping it consistent. Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Now, from there, we can go to traps. I got a good one for traps. I don't know if you do.
So why don't you, because I have anecdote from my office.
Okay.
For traps, not necessarily research. Because the research, I was like, no, I don't buy that for a second. So you tell me what you got.
First, I will mute my, I'm really good at that. If I'm not good at anything else, because I've podcasted for so long, I'm very good at turning my mic off to cough or burp or, you know, that sort of thing, blow my nose, whatever. With traps, the one that stands out to me, and obviously we've talked about this before about the optimal angle not being directly up, but that's just optimization from a growth standpoint. Yeah, there might be a little bit more vulnerability there, but I'm not going with that path. What I'm going with is this. I think the behind the back barbell row is a dangerous movement, not only because I think it puts the traps in the shoulder in an odd position, especially if it's too heavy, but what it does for me is that internal rotation to be able to grab and hold the bar. To me, and look, shoot me down if you're the brains of the operation here. I'm over here hypothesizing, I'm positing, that sort of thing. That internal rotation is putting a lot of stress on either the shoulder, the biceps. There's just something in there that is awkward and doesn't feel right. Now, I understand that I have very, very narrow clavicles, which probably doesn't help. But nonetheless, there is a vulnerability in there, but I am not smart enough to break it down. Can you break it down for me?
So you said behind the back barbell row.
The barbell is literally behind. A lot of people will do them in a Smith machine. Lee Haney used to do them. There's videos of Jay Cutler doing them. And we're going to have those up.
Yeah. Interesting.
But it's essentially you have to be able to hold the bar, but the bar's behind your butt.
Okay. So that would get a lot of subscap, which is rotator cuff, the front of the shoulder capsule, and then all the ligaments. So yeah, that would be more subscap and ligaments with that. Yeah, that would be pretty.
I mean, there's just huge internal rotation there that makes me go, why? Why would we think of this?
Yeah. And I mean, one of the now shoulder impingement, lazy man's diagnosis, but one of the tests is I raise my arm here and then I raise my arm there. And if it hurts with internal rotation, congratulations, you have shoulder impingement. Now we could do better from a diagnostic standpoint, but once again, you're replicating that under load. That doesn't sound like a good idea to me.
Right.
Okay. Interesting. I learned something new today. From my office, I lump levator scapula with the trap, like we've talked about several times. And CrossFitters are all the time hurting themselves. Handstand push-ups, which is just dumb. We talked about the burst fracture on a recent episode where she literally burst her neck and then drove home. Kipping pull-ups in general, heavy lateral raises with shit form are notorious. Heavy overhead presses, especially in the strongman, so axle presses, log presses, stuff like that. Now, the one paper said, well, shrug should because they're maximally loaded. I'm like, unless you're just being a complete a-hole and just slamming the weights, I haven't heard anybody really like straining or tearing a shrug. Now, I've had people tweak their levator with shrugs, especially if they're doing them. Watch our trap episode, everybody, because we broke down the proper way if you must shrug.
Right.
But if you have to, levator, but it's usually levator, not trap. And let me just real quickly, in case this is your first ever episode with us, this is the greatest show ever. Here is your levator scapula, right? And here is your trap. So it is your trap's helper, right? But anytime you're raising your shoulders, anytime you're side bending, you're using the levator. And that levator muscle is so damn important for shoulder mobility, for posing, for lifting, for neck pain, all of that. So if you're not familiar with the levator muscle, that's what it is. I treat that muscle on probably a quarter of my patients every single day, if not more. Like I'm needling that or electrifying gloving it 4 to 8 times per day. So it's pesky.
Okay.
So just be careful with those motions. Typically CrossFit has an issue with it, but for bodybuilders, it's the 90s style, awesome laterals that we watched all those amazing genetic mutants do. And then we tried to do it and wondered why our neck hurt and our shoulders didn't grow.
Right. My shoulders are still small.
Yep. So you got anything else for traps?
No. But it's an easy segue into shoulders, into delts from there, because you touched on the overhead press. Here's where I'm going to go.
Okay.
I am going to concede, even though I like the exercise.
Oh, I know where you're going.
Yep. I'm going to concede that behind the neck press is a vulnerability. It arguably shouldn't be. And I said that on the episode. So anybody who has not seen the press behind neck, it's one of the first shows we did, if not the first show.
Okay. So watch it and then give us kudos for how much better we are.
Yeah. Don't grade us on the quality of that show, please. Yeah. And in another 6 months, don't grade us on the quality of this one too.
Yeah.
The behind the neck press, though, even though it shouldn't be a vulnerability, definitely can be based on shoulder mobility primarily. mechanics have to be sound. There are the little things. The bar should not come down to the traps. It should be arguably, at eye level, nose level in there. The angle of the Smith is important. I say Smith because I prefer to do them with a Smith machine because that locks in the bar path versus, and especially if you haven't done the exercise before, versus just starting out and going, I'm going to do a free barbell behind the neck press. I messed myself up. Skip's an asshole and doesn't know what he's talking about.
As an educated meathead, I want to be doing everything I can to recover from each training session. Rapid reboot compression therapy is one of the tools in my tool belt that I not only use in just my office, but myself after every single leg session, and it really makes a difference. Use my promo code Dr. Marvin Says to save money on any of the compression systems. That is definitely Dr. Marv approved.
So, but I do think it's a great exercise. I have that on my list, but the other one that I think is, I don't know, that I wanted to focus on more is this. I don't like, and I think they call it an Ahhnold press, where you start with a neutral grip and you have that rotate. I am not a fan of rotation, that much rotation, I guess I should say, of a multi-angle joint. I would feel the same way about hips and the hips too. Under resistance, I don't like that. I feel like and I can't explain why. Again, that's why you're here. You got to bring the brains to the operation. Yep. So am I right? Number one. And number two, if I am right, why am I right?
Yeah, you have the Ahhnold press, you have the Scott press. I'm not a fan. Job security, there's count number 2. It's just, there's a lot of motion. You're not Ahhnold, back then was like, well, if I'm rotating and then I'm getting rear delt, are you minimal? Right. So
I didn't know that was his explanation.
You get hit all 3 heads is my understanding. It is what it is. Same with like a Scott press, man. Awesome if you could do them, but just absolutely brutal on most people's shoulders. They don't have the mobility. We talked about behind the neck press, Ahhnold press. You've got to have not just shoulder mobility. You got to have thoracic, i.e. upper back mobility, rib cage mobility. Your elevator needs to not be tight. So your shoulder blades are hooks. They could rotate up. Just a lot of times people come in and, man, my shoulders are hurting on my shoulder days. What are you doing? I'm doing a Scott press. The Cuban press is even more brutal. The Ahhnold press, I'm like, just do normal overhead pressing. Magic. Their shoulders go away. So
their shoulder pain goes away.
Correct. Yeah. Yes.
I don't want to argue semantics here, but
no, but that's pretty big. I used to do a lot of Ahhnold presses early in my trainer days because Ahhnold did it. He was in his encyclopedia, so I would do every exercise for that body part when I would train that day, and wonder why I couldn't get above 155 pounds for the first 3 years of lifting. So not a fan just because of all the compression, the rotation. If you don't have mobility, again, remember what impingement tests are. We're doing impingement like this. We're doing impingement like this. You're doing,
what about a torn labrum?
And then a torn labrum is going to really piss it off because usually there's a specific groove you could get in. And like if you have an acute tear, like for me, last time I overhead pressed, my elbows were in different positions because I could only go a certain pathway. And that's when I was like, I should probably stop doing this because it's not like my shoulders need anymore. Right. So a torn shoulder labrum, adding the rotation is going to be even worse. And guess what? I'm putting somebody through rotation when I'm checking AC joint, SC joint, shoulder labrum. Like, let's not do labral tests for pathology for repetitions for decades at a time.
Right.
And then I'll get off my soapbox. But what does the research say? So delt typically is most vulnerable when you're getting forceful resisted shoulder abduction or flexion when you're already overhead, right? Okay. So all those movements we just talked about. So overhead pressing, especially the front and the middle delt, especially with the behind the neck press like you talked about. There's some studies on screen. I'm just going to lump them all together. We typically don't do them as bodybuilders, but if we have time for a listener question, we will. Snatches, jerks could do that. Obviously, plyometric throwing, throwing in general can. What's interesting is this study was really big on repetitive intramuscular injections increase your risk for a deltoid tear due to localized muscle injury and contracture. So make sure that's not the scope of our podcast, but if you are somebody who's doing a bunch of shoulder shots, make sure you're getting some tissue work done so that doesn't start scarring up. because that will increase risk of that. And then if you've had a previous rotator cuff injury or tear or surgery, that dramatically increases your risk of injury of the middle delt, because in your middle delt's going to try to kick in for your rotator cuff, especially when you're trying to maintain abduction and shoulder elevation. Well, the middle delt's trying to kick in for your rotator cuff. You're asking a muscle to do something it's not designed for.
Right.
That alone will increase it. So usually if I have a deltoid injury, I can't say always, but more often than not, there is a history of a previous rotator cuff injury on that same side. I can't off the top of my head think of somebody, because a delt tear is pretty rare. Usually it's going to be front delt, and then is it the front delt? Is it the bicep? It's usually, but middle delt would really like perk my eyes up. And right now I would say every single person who's come in with that has had an injury. So if you're somebody with a history of rotator cuff injuries, you need to rehab it right, and you need to warm up. And you doing a band or, heaven forbid, a dumbbell like this right before you lift is not enough.
Right. Good. I have 2 points.
Mm-hmm.
One, I can see where Ahhnold could think, oh, there's rear delt work being done. But it's simply from a stabilization standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
If you're overhead pressing dumbbells or a barbell that is not in a fixed path, well, even with a fixed path, you still get some work because it's antagonistic muscle group. But the stabilization component of the rear delts, I know the first couple times that I did an overhead press with a barbell press wasn't even that heavy. And I thought, brutal, man, I got a pretty good rear delt pump here just from the stabilization. You don't get as much of that from a machine or a Smith machine, but it's still there because it has to help to pull the weight down, if you will, even though I think I never get a tricep pump from doing curls. So there is that. So I would argue that it's a smaller muscle group, and it was the first one or the first or second time that I did that exercise. I felt. So it's more about the stabilization. Number 2, I don't know if any of the viewers have the maturity level that I do, but I couldn't get to the laugh button when you said within 60 seconds, you used the term or the word snatch, jerk, and doo-doo. Now, you didn't mean doo-doo, but it was doo-doo.
Yeah.
It was, and there's a grammatical, I'm supposed to know the name of it. I just posted something on Facebook yesterday. I thought I was hilarious about heterographs and was spelling bated breath and, baited. Then a lead balloon, and I could spell it, and no one jumped on. By the way, it was a post about Black Rabbit. If any of the viewers are a Jason Bateman fan like I am, like Ozark and that sort of thing, Black Rabbit starts September 18th. It's going to be arguably right around the time this show comes out. If you're not aware of Black Rabbit, it'll be on Netflix on the 18th. It's just a series. But again, I'm a huge Jason Bateman fan because of Ozark, and this has a similar plot line.
Nice.
So you can see in the description of the plot where this could be very Ozarky.
I love it. I actually rewatched all of Ozark because I never watched the end. And then Bad Words, his directorial debut, super underrated movie. Bad Words. Okay. If you haven't seen it, watch it. Super underrated.
Where we go? Arms? Or did you want to add something?
I had something and now I forgot. Shoot. Oh well. It can't be that important. If you are overhead pressing, I would prefer, especially if you have a history of shoulder issues, you're not out to the side, your elbows slightly forward about 20 to 30 degrees. This is called scaption plane. I know my black Willie Nelson shirt isn't the best, but my upper arm is parallel with my shoulder blade. That allows my rotator cuff to better stabilize. So if you have a history of rotator cuff issues, line it up a little bit forward. It also biomechanically lines up with the line of pull of the front delt. And then a lot of times I'll have people not sit perfectly upright, but just one notch back, and that'll open up more space. If you're on a machine, throw a foam roller or a yoga block behind your back, and it's kind of like adding a little incline. So there's some clinical gems, and that should help. Now, then let your lateral raises and the different variations that Skip especially is big on, kind of take care of the middle delt and the backside of that middle delt, because that will kind of start to get neglected as soon as you bring this forward. But risk reward, if I'm able to create a higher stability in the joint, what do I always say? Stability equals output potential. By output, I mean effort or intensity, i.e. proximity to failure. Higher output, better gains with a Z. So increased stability, better output potential, better output, better gains. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, super easy. And then do the different variations where you could fill in the rest of what you need.
And I do have to piggyback one point before we move on, because I think it's important. If you are, and we're talking specifically about shoulders here, but it goes for pretty much anything. If the left doesn't match the right, if you have to make an accommodation because of pain or discomfort on one side to the other, and you're like, oh, that fixes it, it doesn't fix anything. All you're doing is getting around the issue.
You're robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Fix the issue. Maybe get around it for that workout. I'll give you that. It's like, okay, if it's a minor fluctuation or a minor adjustment, okay for that workout. But fix the issue. Don't sit down and go, yeah, but if I just pull this shoulder down a little bit, that is a recipe for disaster over time, because then what you're doing is you're perpetuating the arguably this what's going to become a very big imbalance in weakness versus strength. And it doesn't just impact the muscles that you're training directly. It impacts everything that has to stabilize that. And you're arguably throwing off everything all the way to the floor. Your hips, your shoulders, your lower back, everything becomes a mess. And you're going to make it worse.
And you most likely will start developing neck issues with that levator. There's a little secret I have, but I'm going to keep that a secret for that.
Well, we'll talk about it after the show, because oddly, I have both side levator issues now.
Yeah, I got something.
And I never have had that before.
Yeah, so 100%. So Skip's right. And then just properly warm up. Don't force a movement, right? Let's go to biceps.
Yep.
A very interesting stat. I knew it was going to be high, but how high it was surprised me. But do you want to give yours first, and then I'll
go for it?
Okay. So biceps, usually if it's proximal, which means closer to midline, it's the long head, and that could be a slap tear where your bicep rips the labrum open like a zipper. That's what I have on both sides. And usually up here is usually from degeneration, if not like an explosive movement. So usually it's either an explosive traumatic event or degeneration over time. Distal, which is farther away, is usually a mix of long head and short head in the tendon. Isolated short head tears are rare, but they are documented. But the number one bicep tear was mixed grip deadlifts with the supinated palm's hand. Up to 71% of distal bicep ruptures in this study was tied to that during the eccentric or the isometric when you're trying to pull it up from the floor. And it's most seen in middle-aged men, according to this other study. And then we've got some other things to mention. Curls, right? You can be proximal, can be distal. I would say anecdotally, the biggest offenders I see in office are sloppy form, preacher curls, incline curls, or forcing a straight bar. So if you haven't heard us say it, I'm going to say it again. Yes, Ahhnold, we're picking on him. He's famous for the straight bar curl and get your pinky up. And yes, your bicep technically does this motion. Supination, palms up. You were what? Superman? What was your?
Yeah, Superman, because he flies with his hands here. Yeah.
So use an easy bar. I got a little thrown off. Use an easy bar because bicep activation is damn similar and there is significantly less strain on the bicep tendon. So don't force these unawkward positions. Then, of course, overhead motion. So throwing is super common. Explosive arm movements increase the risk of slap tears. Fun fact, though, I don't know if you could say 100%. I think I heard somebody say 100%, but I can't confirm. But I believe the majority of major league starting pitchers, well, you have to have your upper arm bone literally twisted, like during your development, this bone is twisted. And then most of them have a healed slap tear because that's the only way you could get this massive cranking to propel an object 100 plus miles an hour. Like, that's just wild to me. So this lap tear has healed and calloused, no problems. This one I keep re-aggravating. I am getting stem cells at the end of September, which is this month, which I'm going to document. So I'm extremely excited about.
Nice.
But just a fun fact, but other honorable mentions for biceps. And well, you're probably going to call them all -1. So give me yours.
But it's
and
pretty
I'll fill
limited
it in.
too on the exercises that we have. So, but you're right. I was going to go with the incline dumbbell curl.
Okay. Yep.
I just think that,
especially slamming it.
And you know, then we have the one that was becoming pop, and I don't want to throw Coach Cassim under the bus because I think he's a very, very smart guy, and I like what he's doing with his material and his content. But he did have a video lying flat on a bench, facing up, doing curls, and I just cringe at that. And I don't even know, in fairness to him, if he wasn't using that as an example of what not to do, but I don't believe that was a what not to do video, if I remember correctly.
I know Dr. Mike Israetel loves those.
Okay. I am going to go on record and say that's just one of those exercises that ranks up there with lying. You have more delt activation when you lie on your side and you do a side lateral. No one is getting big doing this movement. And on top of that, the risk to reward, the ROI is it's one of those things where you have the numbers and what it looks like on paper, and then you have what happens when you apply it, and they just don't match up. My advice is throw that in the trash. That is not to say that Mike Israetel or anybody else who does them, Coach Cassim, I'm not saying they're stupid. I'm saying I disagree. I'm saying throw it in the trash. The incline curl to me is one of the most
We're allowed
vulnerable.
to disagree with people. People forget that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm trying to do it as respectfully as possible. If I didn't have any respect for either one of them, I would probably say, I just think it's the dumbest shit ever. I have no problem. I'm that type of person. I will say that. So those two, obviously the preacher curl as well. I think that comes down to mechanics. I am a big fan of, and this is difficult to do. I love preacher curls. And I'm one of the few who like them with an easy curl bar, like free weight. But I don't have a standing preacher curl in my gym, and even a seated for that matter. So what I have to do is I have a garage style gym, so I use a Gen 1 Icarian hack squat, and I put a folded pad over the top of the platform and a folding chair behind it, and I use the platform as the preacher curl bench, if you will. And one of the few reasons, 2 or 3 reasons that I like that and prefer that over a real standing preacher curl or even a seated preacher curl is in the bottom position I'm able to touch the back of my hand to the platform. It's not dangling free. It's like, on a regular preacher curl, the pad stops at the bottom of the elbow. That I think me being able to not hyperextend, even if I wanted to, arguably, some people say, oh, you rest for a second. You're taking intensity out of, I'm being smart here. Okay. That angle is very good in the sense that I minimize the risk and I get the preacher curl benefit from it. And I like the barbell component of it versus a machine because I have to stabilize and balance. So I will not use a hammer curl machine. I would rather if we had a hammer curl preacher bench.
Oh yeah, the hammer's trash.
Oh, I just think it's
one of
garbage.
It's one of the few things they don't do well.
I just think most of them are. We have a preacher curl machine, I go for, okay, I got to get the easy curl bar. I got to get the collars. I got to load the plates. I got to put the folding chair out. I got to go find the what do I call it? What do you call it? The foam pad that has the 3 sections because I need it to fit on the edge of the platform so that it's not all bulky and round and it stays there when I get up or go to get on it to put my elbows on it. So I have to go through all this, and it sounds like an incredible, like I'm making it into this laborious task, but versus moving a pin on a weight stack for a preacher curl machine, it is quite laborious, but I would rather do that than I would to use
so I have a lot of info about this.
Okay.
One, don't do the hyperextension. I actually, on my tutorials, I even say I don't want full lockout. 2, if you're having a bunch of tension in your forearms, do not ignore it. You've got to work on that. So I'll have patients voodoo floss right before if they're doing preachers or arms, spoon or butter knife, mimic Graston or scraping. Do not ignore tension in your forearms, because we've talked about, you have your bicep tendon, and then you got something called your lacetus fibrosis, which is like a drier sheet of fascia right here. And when that's tight, it'll sound and feel like gravel when you cup it, when you scrape it. You got to do that. I don't like the forceful extension. And then what I really like, it's on screen right now, is using wrist straps, and I'm in a hammer grip, but you're really getting it's short in this position. It's a crazy brachialis contraction. Like, I can't get anything to feel like that. But at the bottom, guess what? I'm not going to full extension. So that's a way to kind of tweak it slightly, increase decrease the injury risk. And you can't even, if you're using a machine, you can't fully extend your elbows. So I like that. But do not ignore forearm tightness. I had excruciating elbow pain, and it took me 3 years to figure out, you dumbass. Yes, the pain is here at my olecranon. It feels like it was going to explode. I mean, 9 out of 10, trying not to cry over a trained arms. I spent 3 days finally working all this out. Gone. I'm like, God, I'm a dumb smart guy, right? Because that's how it goes. But yeah, do not ignore that. Other notable mention is the Ronnie style V-bar heavy landmine rows we've talked about. Obviously, underhand barbell rows.
Being a vulnerability, not an exercise you prefer. I just want to be clear.
Thank you. Yep. So these are conversations I'm having in my mind and not vocalizing. And then carries, especially in the world of strongman, those Atlas stones, the Denny stones, which I actually had a patient pick Denny stones up as a female, which is amazing. The carries are brutal in strongman, kipping pull-ups. And then this is going to actually be really depressing. I've had 3 or 4 people, bodybuilders, tear their biceps bowling.
Yep. Same here.
So,
Had 3 in 1 year. I'm like, how do I get so many people who bowl? Like, I've not bowled, and I don't know how many. If we go visit the kids in Milwaukee, I might bowl, but that's about the extent of it.
You're looking at like the 2008 Grossmont College bowling champion.
Oh, is that right?
Now I suck, but I was into it. Had my own ball. So class was 9 a.m. Started at 9.
Did you purposely make it singular when you said it? Because you did have more than one ball. I know you did, but you held back. Because I was already reaching for the button.
I could only admit so much nerdiness at one time, right?
I was reaching for the button until like
class started at 9. The bar at the bowling alley would open up at 8 a.m. So we might have had a beer or two before college. We were the pin billies. We would dress up from Kingpin. Life was good. I got college credit to bowl, and the instructor was really good. I had to bowl a turkey in the final frame to win, and I did it.
What's a turkey?
3 strikes in a row.
Oh, okay. All right.
And it all went downhill from there. That was the pinnacle. That was me peaking. All right.
I don't
triceps.
think people want to hang out with us. I'm really good at cribbage, and you're really good at bowling. Like, people are like, I don't.
Yeah. Oh, well, now I need the damn bumpers out.
It's like, we're not
triceps. Yep. Triceps. So, really common in strongman, and really interesting risk factors that I'm going to give. So triceps are typically involving, obviously, forceful eccentric motion when it's already loaded, whether that is, eccentric on a lift or attempting to catch a weight that is, that is falling. But listen to this. I'm going to quote this from this. Tricep tendon rupture risk increases with the use of anabolic steroids. Distal triceps rupture is an uncommon injury. It is most often associated with anabolic steroid use, weightlifting, and laceration. Other local and systemic risk factors include local steroid injection, so cortisone, not anabolics, olecranon bursitis, and hyperparathyroidism. And then distal tricep rupture is usually caused from fall on an outstretched arm, known as foosh in the medical world, or a direct blow. And then eccentric loading of a contracting butt triceps has been implicated, particularly in professional athletes. So kids, it's falling on an outstretched arm. Athletes, it's more this weird lifting, but it was really big at multiple times, pointed out anabolic steroid use in particular seemed to increase tricep rupture risk. So according to data, obviously heavy pressing, either vertical or horizontal. In strongman, it's a huge issue. So especially with like their log presses or their circus or their monster presses. And then for bodybuilders, overhead triceps extension, and we talked about it in our triceps episode, but just a reminder, the study on screen found that an overhead dumbbell tricep extension and a lying dumbbell tricep extension have very similar activation patterns. So doing them in the same workout is just a redundancy.
Mm-hmm.
So we talked about, go back to that episode so I don't have to rehash the whole thing, but that's two great long head movements, but do them on separate workouts.
Yep. Let me add one medication that I am very surprised was not listed on your list.
Oh, I forgot about the antibiotic.
Quinolones. Yeah. Specifically the quinolone family.
I totally forgot. Yeah.
Doctors, thankfully, the medical community has finally figured it out. It was a sad day when, as a meathead, you have to tell your doctor, like, look at me. You know that I train. Why are you prescribing a quinolone? Yeah, that area or that specific category of antibiotic. These days, they're not going to
know if they're going to prescribe it.
Yeah, they don't usually, but you just have to double check just to make sure, because not only is the tendon rupture risk high while you're using it, but up to 10 to 12 or 16 weeks. I can't remember what it was, but it was a substantial amount of time after using the medication as well. So people would get off the medication and think, oh, it's been 4 weeks, I'm good. And then they end up, and we're not talking about, it was a little more frequent. We're talking about a substantial increase in the risk for tendon ruptures.
Persists up to several months after discontinuation. Most cases occur within a few days to 1 month after starting therapy, but several have been reported up to several months post-op. The absolute risk is low, relative risk for Achilles tendon rupture is 2 to 3 times higher in medication users versus not. Because and then especially if you're also doing other corticosteroids like cortisone, you have chronic kidney disease, you have RA. Holy cow. If you add corticosteroid use with it, it goes up 6 to 19 times for Achilles tendon rupture.
Part of this is not always having all the information in your brain, but knowing where to find it. It's just easier these days with ChatGPT and with Google than it is to go, gosh, what was that book? Now I got to go get a book and I got to figure out how to find this. So there is that benefit. Here's what I say with triceps. The two main ones, I laugh and say some guys are just, their tendons are made out of like those steel cords that they use on suspension bridges, and Justin Harris and Dusty Hanshaw both have that type of at least tricep tendons, because when they can do that much weight on what most people call a skull crusher without having that angle open
on
from
a straight bar,
it's crazy. I'm looking at that and the truth is neither one of them, as many years as they have been doing them, has an issue. So I wouldn't change it either. So they're smart because they're like, there have been no signs, there have been no issues, because both of them are smart enough. They would have changed it out long ago if that were the issue. The rest of us mere mortals, it can be I always say that angle between the torso and the upper arm should be slightly open. It shouldn't be closed. And they do them closed and it works. And people will say, well, what about? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't have any reason.
But even
they don't mess them up.
Even biomechanically, that's better though, because think about, you're getting a stretch on the tricep if that angle's open as well. So biomechanically, that's better and a lot easier on the elbows, and it changes the resistance profile on these suckers. So, but yeah, it's when I see them do it, I'm like, good Lord.
Yeah. And at the same time, I will continue to say, if you're doing something that is working and you have never had any issues, you're probably okay. I'm not gonna like, if they came to work with me tomorrow and said, hey, how should I do these? I'm like, just the way you've been doing them all. Huh? Yeah. It's like, just don't change anything. That's too many years of doing them that you are like, structurally, you're just made differently than the rest of us. But anybody else, open that angle up, even if it's just a little bit. The overhead dumbbell extension, primarily the one dumbbell with the two hands, at least have some incline angle. I think that the risk of vulnerability for the tricep tendon and issues around the elbow pain around the elbow is more when you're upright. So if you can get back, I mean, if you have to, go all the way back. This is an exercise that a lot of people say, oh, I can't do it. I can't do it. But I bet that 99% of people that if they found an angle in there somewhere would be able to do an angle that would be comfortable. I almost said relatively comfortable. I'm going to say comfortable. That doesn't bother the elbows. If your elbows are in that bad a shape and your tricep tendons are that irritated that you have some sort of, I call it old man-itis, because we tend to do way too much. It's an overwork issue a lot of times. We just do too much. And I laugh and say the next generation, yeah, they're kind of lazy. They don't have old man-itis issues. But maybe they're a little smarter because they're recovering better than the rest of us because they're not overworking everything or in this chronically, I don't want to say an overtrained state, but stepping up to that line and going over that line. They keep a good distance from that line. And arguably, I have been honest with myself and said, maybe they're just smarter by not doing as much work because then their recovery is optimal. The large percentage or the vast majority of the time versus us old school guys who go, oh, I got to do more work. Remember, it's not the amount of work you can do. It's the amount of work you can recover from. Big difference. So those are my thoughts on triceps. I think it's time for Dr. Marv's Prehab Rehab Rodeo Roundup. Woohoo! And I know that that's going to be cringy the more it's cringy enough the first time the viewers hear it, but when they continue here, they're going to be like, oh, does he have to do that?
You got to get the voice crack and everything.
It's probably going to get the same response that my wife responds with when I post my drip, my daily drip.
Oh, yeah.
On Facebook. She can't stand it. Anyway, what do you got? What are you rounding up today? I was going to say my wife has one of those, but it's just a really bad joke. I'm going to have Chris take that out of there.
Yep.
So you better go.
Yep. So today we're talking about massage guns. And before we talk about that, just a very quick announcement that's been behind the scenes for a long period of time. But as of today, I am the sole owner of Coastal Performance Chiropractic in the Houston Bay area. That's been going on for a very long time. So just FYI, that's why I'm down 50 pounds. I've barely been training, eating, or sleeping. So to everybody who wanted to talk smack online, just you don't know what's going on behind the scenes. So maybe think twice. To each their own. Like Skip and I know we're going to get a bunch of, stuff thrown at us because we're signing up for this, which is fine. But like, if you don't know what's going on behind the scenes, like maybe don't slam somebody that you don't know. What was nice is a lot of people defended me, which was cool that I don't even know. But that's what's been going on behind the scenes, folks. So you don't know. So I think I've trained 7 times in 4 months lifting. I still do my cardio. I still do my sandbags. Like I said, I'm going to do stem cells on the 26th. I'm going to document the whole thing. I'm hopeful that I could get back to some sort of regular training because I've been severely limited in the gym since 2019, yet I still got up to just under 250 pounds at the beginning of this year with abs and a mirror. So still able to train. So if I could do it, you could do it. Am I limited? Yeah. There was probably 2 years I could only blood flow restrict arms or only do 1 chest machine. But regardless, just if I could find a way to train, do it. But just be nicer to people online. And I'm very excited. Skip knows way more. That's all we're going to say.
Right.
But very happy. And it's going to be awesome. So
I think it'll be cool to watch you kind of
come back to life.
Oh, man, he's filling out. And then people will be like, I guess he might.
Yeah, I have not seen this number since like 2015. I do fit in my 70s clothes, though, which is awesome. I held on to them for a decade. She was like, why are we keeping these? I'm like, because you never know. Now,
let me ask you this real quick, and I don't want to go down this rabbit hole and make it a long cut, but your wife, does she, because my wife couldn't care less if I bodybuild or not. She just doesn't care if I'm lean, if I'm heavy, if I'm bloated in the off season, whatever, through all these years. Does she kind of like you leaner and like smaller?
She likes me when I'm the opposite of what I am. When
Oh,
I'm
no
full
kidding.
blown bulking, she goes, I wish you're a little bit smaller. When I'm really lean,
Oh,
she's
gotcha.
like, you need to put some size back on. I'm like, hey, you got to pick one or the other.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like I'm
I
over here.
personally prefer being leaner because that's harder. But to each their own. I was really happy when I was like 230, 247, 250. It's getting a little heavy.
Yeah.
For me, a little uncomfortable, but like 225 to 230 with, Thomas Guide roadmap going out. Obviously not show lean. I'm only like 10% there, but I like that personally. So that's what I'm going to try to get back to. Yep.
Cool.
Yep. So, okay. Massage guns 101, vibration. I'm a huge fan of vibration. Lay it all the joke scroll. Right?
It's just so hard not to hit the button.
So we'll just really quickly, so this isn't a long Dr. Marv special. We could do it for athletic performance. You could do it for pain reduction, and you could do it for rehab. So using vibration, one, it doesn't break up scar tissue, so don't let anybody tell you that. I still think, doing it a couple days, if you're somebody who's doing intramuscular shots a couple days later, not a bad idea to get blood flow. But if you go too hard too soon, you could break down that capsule and that could cause issues. So just be mindful. But athletic performance, what does the research say? 2 to 5 minutes of vibration could temporarily increase range of motion. There's mixed studies on whether or not it improves recovery or not. Some studies said yes, some studies said no. There is a warm-up effect, and it's pretty interesting with a very specific thing they measure. So it may acutely, which means short-term, improve something called your reactive strength index. It's called RSI in research. And that basically tells you for athletes how springy somebody is when they jump. So you jump, and then how quickly can you jump again? So athletes with a higher RSI are better at quick, powerful movements like sprinting, jumping, changing in direction. Now, the research said vibrating foam rollers had more of an impact for that when you roll out the lower body than massage guns, but it could still help. Now, how the hell does that work? And then this is also going to apply to bodybuilding because I have a bodybuilding application. It's most likely through improving, neuromuscular control. So either you're going to increase, let's just call it excitatory input from something called muscle spindles, which is, long story short, figuring out where your body detects muscle length and size and length and sends information so you can control it. And then it decreases input from something called Golgi tendon organs. And that's what's really like monitoring how hard a contraction is. Because if you didn't have those, if I did this, I would tear it off the bone. So you're increasing good stuff. Like they're both good. They're to protect us. Right. But like when you hear of mothers lifting, a car off their infant, they're going to tear everything, but they're changing. They're pretty much overriding. They're called GTOs, not the car, which is a badass car, but they're overriding that. And you have the ability to exert more force. It's just your nervous system, your brain protects you. But what's really cool is the study said, if you use the vibration consistently, it might induce actual like permanent central nervous system adaptations, which is known as neuroplasticity. So you might actually get your brain and spinal cord to adapt and actually be able to recruit stuff better. So for bodybuilding, I've said this a couple times, I'm big on this. You're going to take your massage gun, you're going to do all your warm-up stuff. And right before you do a dumbbell bench or a flat barbell bench at the end of your workout, but remember it's one notch up, you're going to run your massage gun on each pec for 10 to 20 seconds, put the massage gun down and immediately start your work set. And this will temporarily increase that neural excitability. I've had people report not only increased strength, definitely better mind to muscle connection. But if you're an RPE guy, people feel like it's easier. And some studies say doing the vibration even between your sets can delay fatigue and allow more performance reps before you hit the cliff. So I'm big on my massage gun. Now you could rub, but I'm already a weirdo in the gyms I train at because I actually train to begin with. So I don't want to be constantly rubbing, right? Especially before a glute dominant movement. But short and sweet turns up a muscle, long and slow turns down a muscle. So for pain reduction, let's just do my thing and I tell an office. You're going to find a tender spot. So say your levator's killing you. You're going to find it and you're going to set a timer for 2 minutes. Gentle pressure. You're just going to hold it still at that knot. 2 minutes is key because you've got to have this input to your nervous system long enough for it to change things. So 2 minutes of consistent vibration will relax those receptors in the muscle. So that'll relax the knot a little bit. No, it's not as much as like dry needling, but it still will help. But it's going to change your brain's perception of pain. Why? Pain, vibration, and pressure. Those signals all enter the spinal cord at the same area. Then they take different tracks up to the brain. Pressure and vibration travel faster than pain. So if you have that channel open long enough, 2-minute minimum, your brain starts to pay attention to that and forgets about pain. It's that cool thing of you have a headache, smash your thumb with a hammer, you forget about your headache, but it's a much nicer way. So it'll reduce that. One study, which I'm going to have to dive into it, said it reduced inflammatory markers in blood, which I was like, interesting. I needed, I'm not saying that's official.
Right. Let's look at that a little more.
Definitely reduces DOMS. I think everybody would agree. You do massage gun when you're super freaking sore. You're not as sore. You're getting blood flow. And then it definitely increases pain tolerance and reduces subjective pain for 48 up to 72 hours. So awesome for that. And then from a rehab standpoint, last bit, use touch. Like muscles are electrically stimulated by touch, but vibration is getting those other receptors that touch might not get. You know, say somebody comes with a hot low back and I needle their back, I maybe adjust them. They got to do cat cows and bird dogs. They get up on my table and I'm going to be running my massage gun on their low back, restoring their brain's connection with all those multifidi and other muscles they tweaked, right? So you can use it from a rehab standpoint to help somebody start to recruit muscles better. Because remember, you could have neuroplasticity from an athletic standpoint. You could also reverse engineer that for rehab. So vibration is awesome. It does not break up scar tissue. I'm still going to choose 8 hours of sleep versus a massage gun and 3 hours of sleep. Like, in my performance pyramid hierarchy seminar / course, I put massage guns at the top and I call them pseudo recovery. Part of it's tongue in cheek, but part of it's also like, let's make sure your big rocks are in order, folks. But if you have your big rocks in order, these are badass. Now, this is obviously my gym one. It's a little beat up, but this is like a pretty heavy duty one. If you're just using it for yourself, you don't need to get this. But the one I do like from this company, shameless plug, is in my Amazon list, and it's like $140. So it's not terrible. I know they have them at Costco and Sam's Clubs. I will say, patients have said those last about 2 years or so and then they break. So if it was me, the company I used to recommend, they like doubled the rate. So I don't know with the shortages or the tariffs. So like I'm no longer recommending them. But vibration, I love it. It's an awesome tool in the gym. Like for real, if you got a lagging body part, man, run it on that muscle for 10 to 20 seconds. Like do it as your warm up for a longer period of time. And then between every work set, 10 to 20 seconds. And I think you'll notice a difference. Most people, whether it's online or in office, they go, so I finally did your massage gun thing. Yeah, I'm never going to work out without it again. So it's a cool tool. Just know what it's for.
So, I mean, let's be fair. It's just semantics. That's a giant vibrator.
Mm-hmm.
It just is.
Yep.
But it sounds better in our industry to call it a massage gun.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think they would sell as many in the other industry if they called them massage guns versus vibrators. So my takeaway is this. I need vibration and a good rub. I tried to say it with a straight face. I claim this maturity level.
That is technically what I said. That's what it is. What I said.
And apparently, that can make you feel good in the gym too.
Yep.
Anyway,
I choose vibration over rubbing. I did say that.
I'll take them both.
Yep.
Read that any way you want, I guess. That might fire up some comments.
Let's rock.
Skip's cheat meal review. My top 5 burgers. Last week, number 5. Remember, I have 2 lists because I have to give the national chain, the one that's available to everybody. But then, I got to have the B channel too. So.
Everybody, I had to go to Five Guys after last week's recording.
What did you think?
That's where I go to if I'm going to get a burger here, because I have yet to find an immaculate burger in the Houston Bay. So if anybody knows, please give me them.
Nice. I'll do a little due diligence for you. I'll help you out, bro.
Good.
So number 4, just to recap from last week, number 5 was In-N-Out, and I know that's going to irritate a lot of people. Number 4 is Five Guys, so we'll cover number 2 and number 3. But I got to go with my pick, because remember, my pick might not be a chain, and it's usually not, if I'm being honest. So number 5 was Moonlit Burgers in Moonlit Burgers PGH, which is Pittsburgh. Masters, or not Masters, but North Americans was last week in Pittsburgh. So I'm sure quite a few of the competitors head over to Moonlit. If they didn't, they should have.
Yep.
And number 4 was Cops in Milwaukee. Our kids are in Milwaukee. I spent a lot of time there. So it's kind of an old school too. They wear their white paper caps, you know, with the white shirts and a black tie or a black bow tie. So we'll hit number 3. Number 3 for the franchise this week is Shake Shack.
Okay.
Great burger, consistent. Here's the cool thing with the franchises. They are consistent. If you have an In-N-Out burger in Vegas, you're going to get that same burger. It's going to taste the same in California or any other place they have an In-N-Out. Same with Five Guys. That's any other franchise. That's great. But when you do a gourmet burger, it has to be the same, because if it's not, number one, you're not getting it anywhere else. So typically it is the same. But if it's not, it's got to taste the same every time I go there. So number 3 was Shake Shack. Great shakes too. But here's the other thing that I made this point last week. I'm going to make it again this week and again next week for the number 1 spot. If you have a great burger, but you have run-of-the-mill mediocre fries, that can ruin a good burger. Shake Shack has those crinkle fries, and they give you that fake cheese sauce. I call it fake cheese sauce because I don't want to know what's in there.
Yeah.
I'm not eating it for nutrition. It's a cheat meal, but it can't be good. It's probably like government cheese or something because it melts. Regular cheese, it doesn't melt very well.
Yellow plastic.
Yeah.
Yellow plastic.
You melt regular cheese and it just doesn't look very palatable, even though it arguably is, but it's very clumpy and that sort of thing. No, you're getting fake cheese, I think, from Shake Shack. At least that's what it looks like. Number 2, though, on the franchise is Smash Burger. This started in Colorado. A lot of these restaurants, Chipotle, a lot of these really good franchises started in Colorado, and then they branched out from there. Even Snooze. If you've eaten at a Snooze, I used to eat at the original one downtown Denver, and then they expanded through Denver, and then they just went crazy. I think they have like, I shouldn't do this because it may be wrong, but I think they covered the 100 mark, or they cleared the 100 mark within the last year, but I'll have to check on that. Smash Burger, very thin fries, great fries. You can't go, well, I say you can't go wrong with Smash Burger. Some people like the thick, you know, big, meaty. Not a fan. Pittsburgh is huge on Smash Burgers too. So if you can find a good Smash Burger, unless it's not your thing, it's a Smash Burger, and the name of the place is Smash Burger, they're probably going to do it well. So number 2 and number 3, I'll start with number 3 for my pick. That is not a franchise. Wild Roots in Milwaukee. I know I've gone with 2 in Milwaukee so far, but I have done a lot of travel. I've had a lot of burgers in a lot of great places, but there are some good burgers in Milwaukee. It gets the duck fat burger. And I have said before, I'll say again, anytime that you put either duck fat, which is duck confit, basically, or you put foie gras on a burger, I'm going to order it. And that might play a part in the number 1 pick, but I'm not going to give you any more than that. That to me makes a really good burger. So this would be more of a gourmet type burger. It's not in an overly expensive restaurant. It's in kind of like I call it a hipster pub or a hipster type of, those are those places that go into areas that are being gentrified because they don't have a lot of money to get into the high rent districts. And they're typically young, they're new chefs, and new chefs tend to come out with really great burgers because they don't know that there's no money in it. And that's why you can get great burgers and then you try to go back a year later and they're gone because they don't have the business acumen or the financial backing to be able to sustain the business until it starts to take off. And you can't go with burgers. It's just not a big money-making industry. You got to have your restaurant that is well-known, you're building your brand, and you have a really good burger that's part of that menu. Number 2, though, going to Denver, number 2 on my list of best burgers. And this one has been there for the number 1 spot only took over this place. And the number 1 spot was only about a year ago. I don't want to say where it's from because it can give it away for anybody who might know me. But the number 2 spot is a Cherry Cricket in Denver. It's kind of an institution in the Denver area. But one of the first things you notice is when you get in that area, you smell charcoal. And anytime you cook a burger over charcoal, you can bet that it has a different taste than a burger that has just been fried. Obviously, there's what the meat is, the meat blend, and I don't know what their meat blend is. But they win the burger battle there. If I had to guess, and I haven't checked on this, but I've been to the burger battle in Denver for years. I've even arguably thought about just flying in for the Denver burger battle and then staying a day and then coming back home. They've won the burger battle. They probably win it 2 out of 5 years, 2 out of 6 years. They're that good.
Nice.
So Cherry Cricket, if you're in Denver, check out the Cherry Cricket. I'm going to leave the number 1 spot alone for next week. I'll recap the top 5. But the number 1 franchise and the number 1 my pick, and I'll throw you a little bone about my pick. I paid a little over $170 for, I had to check the receipt, a little over $170 for my number 1 spot for my pick. And hopefully it's coming up here again soon. I don't want to give away the time because that'll give away where it might be.
Yeah.
But and the cool thing is, even though it's not a franchise, a lot of people who are listening might be in that area at some point and be able to take advantage of getting that burger if you want to spend that kind of money. From there, let's get on the Q&A. Yeah, I think you have 2 questions.
Yeah,
right.
I think we'll probably get through one. Because the other one it's been on deck for over a month, but it's a interesting combo. But let's go with this first one from Roan Ranger, just as we brought it up today. I've been programming a morning session of GPP, which is general physical preparedness. Among some of the exercises I started leaning more and more towards Olympic lifts. With that being said, 1, is there a place in bodybuilding programs for Olympic lifts since there isn't much of an eccentric portion of the movement? And 2, what tips do you have to improve the front rack position? Is it just working on my lats to increase range of motion of my shoulders? And then right now he says he can only get his elbows about 75 degrees, not quite parallel to the ground.
Okay, I'm totally missing the 75 degrees parallel to the ground.
So he can't go this. He's stuck here in a front rack position. So he's here in a front rack. You really need to be there. I mean, I can't even do it.
See, the problem is I don't have a lot of background in the Olympic. This is probably more in your wheelhouse. I'll try to piggyback off, but I'm going to have you answer it. And then I'll see if I can piggyback off of it.
So I stay in my lane. I do not coach Olympic lifting. That would be beyond egotistical for me. Now I know how to assess. With the office rep, I mean, there's still a lot to be done, but I did do a squat seminar I did a live squat seminar, had the current all-time world record holder. What was it? 854 at a body weight of 220 there. Another guy squat over 900 did a live Q&A. I should be starting to edit that up into my second course. So when that comes out, definitely do that. But front rack position, it's a lot. So you've got to assess wrist, elbows, shoulders, T-spine, rib cage, hips, knees, ankles. It is a lot. So I'll just do the arm assessment real quickly. So can you go here and can your wrist crease be below your elbows? That is your wrist. Then for your elbows, can you be at 90 degrees and have your knuckles touch your shoulders? Guess what? Most bodybuilders can't from a muscular size standpoint. And then shoulders, the big thing I look at, and it's on screen. This is a strong man. We're working on his front rack position. Ideally, you would be sitting on a box to mimic a squat, but he's here. Can you get your hands past your elbows? I mean, your hand past your shoulder, which you could see he can't either, right? So yes, lats are part of it, but it's a lot of external rotation that people don't realize. So usually we're lacking external rotation. Your biceps are going to be in the way, right? That's why Olympic lifters have huge traps and small arms, and they have huge legs, right? What are their biggest muscles? Their quads, their glutes, and their traps, but their arms are typically small. So there's stuff like that. Now, is there a place in bodybuilding for Olympic lifting? I would say not from an aesthetic on stage standpoint, but if you can Olympic lift properly, that means your mobility is remarkable, which is going to help you with all your other bodybuilding aspects. Will it directly translate to the stage? Not directly, but again, wrist, elbows, shoulders, rib cage, thoracic spine, hips, ankles. Like if you're doing a proper Olympic lift, your mobility is off the charts, which means you're going to be able to get in almost any position you want. Hell, you might even be able to do a kipping pull-up. I wouldn't do that, but you might have the mobility demands for it. So you're not going to see any open bodybuilders doing Olympic lifting. It's just a size standpoint. It's all of that. This guy's already talking about I'm having a hard time getting it up, right? So just know that I know that I heard it as I said it. Just
I need that button closer.
Just underhand. Yep. So just be patient with it. But yeah, really look at external rotation of the shoulder. And then people just don't even look at the wrist. They don't look at the elbows. Yes, you could do eccentric pull-ups to kind of loosen your lats up, but I'm going to say it's going to be more rib cage driven, and then that'll affect your T-spine. So it's a huge project. I always kind of cringe when somebody says, let's work on my front rack position. It's like, okay, this is going to be a 25-minute assessment and we've got 30 minutes. And then you're going to have to do a ton of work, but I have gotten strongman to be able to get into not the world's best, but instead of being here, at least up to there to help. Right. So to each their own, but I mean, it's awesome. I know he's a veteran. I believe so. Like the dude's a badass. So it's awesome he's doing it. But yeah, I stay in my lane. I don't correct any Olympic lifting. I just know how to assess and get people to warm up for it, but people devote their whole lives to it. And then that's my big hate on, because hey, soccer mom, Susie, John Doe, you haven't worked out in 20 years and we're going to do snatches day one. Like, come on. You're supposed to start with a PVC bar if you do it properly with a right coach.
Oh.
Yep.
See, I'm learning. I see that type of lifting as it being more coordination based than clearly. I mean, if there were any type of, this is my opinion, if there were any relationship or any benefit for hypertrophy, then I would know about it. I would, because I would want to, and I would see a connection. Because I've never seen that connection and never made that connection, I have just put it over here. To me, it's just a completely different animal. Body fat and all that conditioning, oxygen uptake, VO2, none of that matters because it's such a brief and power-based and coordination-based effort or exercise.
And I'm going to say something controversial. So I don't like Olympic lifts for generating power in athletes because it's still pretty damn slow compared to explosive med ball throws or jumps, right? Because people go, oh, it's power. It's how you build explosiveness. The bar is still only moving about 2 meters a second. That's not that fast. Yeah, it's faster than traditional lifting, but I'm going to do plyometrics, med ball throws, slams, proper way to jump. I'm going to do that for my central nervous system excitation for athletes, right? Because like I'll do plyos in my athlete programs when I program for the local college's baseball team. I did their whole strength and conditioning program last year and they did great. There was not a single Olympic lift in. They're like, where's that? I'm like, nope, we don't need it. We did what I did. Their injury rates went down, yeah. So, cause it's so technical, unless you have a great coach, the risk to reward is horrific. And I think you make a good point about the bar. People need to understand what you're saying if they didn't get it the first time. The bar, the actual weight isn't moving very quickly. The person doing it is moving very quickly. Yep.
That quickness, that's not necessarily building explosive or powerful anything by being quick under. And sometimes I will admit it is an impressive endeavor to watch as far as from an Olympic standpoint, because you got these guys who are big as and for them to make that type of a quick move to get underneath a weight that is absurdly heavy and then gain control of it, and then be able to squat, whether it's squat, clean and jerk, whatever the movement is, it can be pretty impressive, and it's typically done at a 3 and 4 times. I don't know, 3 times the weight or something ridiculous. Maybe not 3 times, 2 to 3 times, 3 times.
It depends on the level. Yeah. Like watching a real Olympic lifter is a thing of beauty. I mean, their tailbone is an inch off the ground.
Yep.
And their
you don't want to take your squat mechanics from them. I mean, it's a completely different.
It's a different sport, literally and figuratively. It's awesome. Look at external rotation of the shoulder. That's probably what you're missing more than lat tightness, but lat tightness will impact it, and then rib cage too.
I think we got to get to getting. This is Dr. Marv and Skip splitting. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to like, subscribe, share, and ring the bell. If you didn't like the show, pretend you did. Like, subscribe, share, and ring the bell anyway. It should sound a little something like this. Be sure to use the TrueNutrition.com link in the closing credits to save 10% on not just Team Skip protein, but every supplement they sell. Dr. Marv, how can someone reach out to you if they have questions or if they want to work with you?
Easiest way is Instagram at dr.marvin.saysdc. My office is Coles Performance Chiropractic. If the website is down for an hour, it's because we're swapping it over. And then theeducatedmehead.com.
Fair enough. If you have too much skin and you're calling yourself 15% when you're nowhere near 15%, I'm your guy. Go to teamskip.com and you'll find all my contact information, including Team Skip merch in a bunch of different colors. You can also follow me on Instagram at Intense Muscle. Keep in mind that this is a team of 3, not just the 2 of us. Dr. Marv Skip. Chris is in there. He's the enigma behind the scenes, and he's responsible for visuals and graphics, and he also plays a huge role in the creative process. This project would not work without him. So from all 3 of us, before my voice goes, it's been a business doing pleasure with you. Join us again next week for another issue of Between Two Dumbbells.